Dear Cancer, someone might have told you that you have a scent, not the scent of your body, but the scent of something they can't quite name, an energy that confuses them, unsettles them, creates distance. But this is not a warning. It's confirmation that you are living truthfully. And when you live truthfully, you begin to emit your true fragrance. This is a message meant for you, a soul returning from the realm of forgetting, carrying the scent of all that has been nurtured, held, and released. Stay until the end, for each part will guide you closer to yourself. And from this moment on, we will begin to decode that mysterious feeling. You don't have a strange scent. You simply no longer carry the scent they're used to. Cancer, I know you didn't come here for anything glamorous. You came because something inside you has begun to stir softly, but enough to make your heart quietly flinch. Like walking into a crowded room, sensing the air shift, the glances flicker, the smiles twist ever so slightly. Nothing overt, but you feel it. You brought something they're not yet ready to receive. No one says it outright, no one criticizes, but you feel it deep in your bones. As if you carry a scent they cannot name, only that it makes them feel uncomfortable. You've asked yourself before, am I strange? What did I do wrong? Should I shrink a little just to blend in better? Cancer, you do not have a strange scent. You simply no longer carry the scent they know, and that is a gift, a sacred one not given to all. I once spoke with a Cancer woman in her 62nd. She lived quietly in a small town, tending to her garden, making her home a sanctuary, and writing by hand in her journal. She told me, I don't do much, but wherever I go, over time, people drift away. Not because they hate me, just something about me makes them uneasy. I looked into her eyes and saw the light of someone who has built many homes for others, yet kept the fragrance of her own soul, subtle but enduring. Cancer, you are like her. You carry the scent of profound comfort, the scent of ancestral memories, the scent of a deep, nurturing hearth, the scent of tears that became an ocean of empathy. And for this world, that is too much. Because you are the archetype of the home, the womb, the keeper of emotions. You are not just a person. You are the gathering of all that humanity has ever yearned for in safety and belonging. You are a soul who has passed through many layers of feeling, many shades of longing, many forms of care. And now, you step into a deeper layer, the layer of belonging, the layer of true homecoming. You are not simply living. You are slowly rooting yourself deeper. And that fragrance is the scent of a soul beginning to free itself from every expectation of holding others. The scent of someone who no longer plays a role. The scent of truth before it finds words. In Buddhism, there is a concept called the fragrance of liberation. It is said that when one no longer carries karma, no longer wears masks, no longer needs to decorate the self, then their very being has a fragrance of its own, a fragrance that cannot be mixed, cannot be imitated, and that scent unsettles those who are not yet free. Cancer, you are entering the sacred realm of release. There's no noise, no announcement, but it's enough to make everything false around you begin to crack. Have you noticed some people are quietly pulling away? Some places that once felt familiar now feel suffocating. Some invitations that used to excite you suddenly hold no appeal. It's not because you've become arrogant. It's because your soul is being refined, and everything that no longer resonates will leave on its own. That is not a loss. That is purification. You don't need to apologize for your true fragrance. You only need to choose carefully the space where your scent is allowed to breathe. Not everyone knows how to inhale deeply. Not everyone has lungs clean enough to receive you. If someone says you have a scent, remember this. That is the moment you stopped masking yourself just to please others. Cancer, you once wore perfume to meet others' expectations. You once turned yourself into the gentle scent of a soft lullaby, even though your true essence is the comforting warmth of a deeply rooted home. But today, your soul is weary. It wants to smell like itself again. It no longer wants to act. Take a deep breath, a real one. Can you smell yourself now? Not perfume, but the scent of sadness that has fully ripened, the scent of memories that have already been forgiven, the scent of all those sleepless nights in which you stayed silent while no one noticed. That is the fragrance that made some people leave, and that is also the fragrance that will guide lost souls home. Cancer, you are not alone because you are wrong. You are alone because you are calling in the right ones, and the right ones often arrive later than the crowd. They are walking away from you, but do you know what's moving closer than ever? A soul, a gaze, an embrace that needs no words. They will come not because you tried to impress them, but because they could smell you. You don't have to shout, you don't have to prove. You only need to continue being fragrant in your own truth. If you've ever felt rejected, misunderstood, avoided, and you couldn't even name the reason, write it down. Not to complain, but to whisper to another soul, you are not alone. Because behind the scent you carry, there is a whole river of memory waiting to be recognized. And in the next chapter, we will go deeper into this sacred question. Why does your gentle light feel too blinding to others? Stay with me, because that light is also the doorway. Cancer, there's something no one has ever told you clearly enough. True light has a scent. It doesn't come from what you wear. It isn't found in the words you choose. It is not what you try to create. It is what you can no longer hide. You are not releasing a foul odor. You are emitting a primal light, a light untouched by filters. And because there are no filters, those who've never faced themselves will find your light too bright. So bright, they will have no choice but to turn away. Not because you are wrong, not because you are too much, but because you are fully present. And in a world that is addicted to hiding, raw presence is disorienting. Cancer, you are tender, you are deep, you are quiet. You don't walk into a room and take up space. You walk in silently and you exist. And it is that silent existence, that gentle being, that makes people uneasy. I once sat across from a 40-year-old Cancer woman. She had just left a nearly 10-year relationship. She told me, he said I was a good person, but he couldn't handle the feeling of being seen. Every time I was quiet, he said I made him feel empty, even though I never said a word. I wasn't surprised, because you don't need words to illuminate. You are a steady hearth fire, burning quietly, not flashy, not flickering, but powerful enough to make the darkness in others rise to the surface. The light you emit doesn't come from effort. It comes from cleansing, from having touched sorrow and not running away, from the way you sat with your wounds without ever screaming, from the way you learned to love without needing to possess. You are light because you no longer fear the dark, and that is something not everyone can understand. Some will choose to walk away not because you've hurt them, but because you've awakened the untouched ache within their own souls. You don't need to be loud to make an impact. You don't need to wear robes or bear any symbol on your body. Your presence, quite literally, is a bell. And a bell doesn't ring to be heard. It rings because it can no longer stay silent. In astrology, Cancer belongs to the water element, but this is not the water of rivers or seas. This is soul water, the water of ancestral echoes, the moisture of unspoken empathy, the dew resting gently on petals whose names have long been forgotten. You are the deep current. You don't roar, but you shake foundations. You don't crash the shore, but you nourish the soil. There is a truth in the teachings of the Buddha I wish to offer you today. In the Dhammapada, it is said, "When the sun rises, one may shut their eyes, but cannot stop the light from coming." Cancer, you are that light. Not a light to dazzle or display, but a light that stirs sleeping souls back to remembrance. Some will see you and turn away, not because they hate you, but because they are not yet ready to open their eyes. You don't need to dim yourself to make someone else more comfortable. Sometimes our task is simply to be still and let them learn how to breathe. I know you've folded yourself small before. You've tried to be gentler, lighter, easier to understand. You've taken detours so others wouldn't think you were too much. But dear Cancer, if you keep shrinking for the sake of others' comfort, you will eventually become a prisoner of your own gentle fragrance. You've always known how to make yourself small, like pouring moonlight into a cup just to make it easier for others to drink. But the truth is, moonlight was never made to be held in a cup. It was born to ripple across the lake, to kiss the skin of someone awake at midnight and remind them they too were once made of light. Cancer, you are that moonlight. You don't need to be fully understood. You just need to be left alone to shine. I invite you now to close your eyes. Picture this. You are a candle. No wind, no flickering, just a steady flame casting light on the wall of memories behind you. Are you living as though you were the candle or the smoke? Because there's one thing you must remember now more than ever. Light never needs to justify its presence. Some will leave because you shine too brightly, and you'll wonder, will anyone stay? But do you know what happens when your soul meets someone who doesn't fear the light? Someone who doesn't look away from your gaze? Someone who isn't unsettled by your silence? Someone who sees you not as a mirror, but as a shelter? They will come not because you worked hard to make them comfortable, but because you finally stopped hiding your true light. And when that happens, a whole new chapter will begin. Have you ever had someone look at you without needing to understand everything and still whisper, "I feel at peace"? Share that story, because your words might be the light for someone lost in the shadows of their own making. And in the next part, we'll uncover a deeper truth. The scent you carry is not loneliness. It is the fragrance of a soul calling others home. Dear Cancer, I know you didn't come here for anything loud or flashy. You came because something inside you is shifting quietly, but enough to startle your heart. Like the moment you step into a crowded room and feel the air drop, the glances flicker, the smiles slightly off. Nothing is said, no one calls it out, but you feel it, as if you carry a scent they cannot name, only that it makes them feel uncomfortable. And you've asked yourself, am I strange? Did I do something wrong? Should I shrink myself a little just to blend in more easily? Dear Cancer, there's nothing strange about your scent. You simply no longer smell like them, and that is a gift not everyone receives. I once spoke with a Cancer woman in her 62nd. She lived quietly in a small town, tending to her garden, cultivating a sense of home, and handwriting her journals. She told me, I don't do anything, but wherever I go, after a while, people slowly pull away. Not because they hate me, it's just something about me makes them uneasy. I looked into her eyes, and I saw the light of someone who had nurtured many lives, yet still carried her own fragrance, subtle but enduring. Cancer, you are like her. You carry the scent of profound safety, the scent of timeless comfort, the scent of unspoken care, the scent of tears that have become oceans of understanding. And for this world, that is too much. because you are the first water sign, the emotional wellspring of the zodiac. You are not just a person. You are the echo of everything humanity has ever felt in its search for belonging. You are a soul that has passed through many layers of feeling, many forms of sorrow, many kinds of longing. And now you enter a deeper layer, the layer of belonging, the layer of true return. You are not merely living. You are slowly settling into your deepest truth, and that scent is the scent of a soul, freeing itself from every mold, the scent of someone who no longer plays a role, the scent of truth without words. In Buddhism, there is a concept called the fragrance of liberation. It arises when a person no longer carries karma, no longer wears falsehood, no longer needs adornment. Their very presence becomes a scent, one that cannot be bottled, cannot be mimicked, and that scent makes those who are still bound feel threatened. Cancer, you are entering that space of liberation quietly, without announcement, but powerfully enough to crack whatever is false around you. Do you feel it? Some people are slowly withdrawing. Some places once familiar now feel suffocating. Some invitations suddenly lose all appeal, not because you're arrogant, but because your soul is being purified, and anything incompatible will gently fall away. This is not loss, this is cleansing. You do not need to apologize for exuding your true fragrance. You only need to choose the right space where that scent can breathe. Not everyone knows how to inhale deeply. Not everyone has lungs clean enough to receive you. So, if someone says you smell, remember, that is the moment you stopped scenting them with the absence of yourself. Cancer, you were once the one who wore perfume to meet their expectations. You turned yourself into soft vanilla, even though inside you burned with the sacred warmth of home. But today, your soul is tired. It wants to smell like itself again. It no longer wants to perform. Try taking a deep breath, deeper. Can you smell your true scent now? Not perfume, but the scent of sorrows that have ripened, the scent of memories that have been forgiven, the scent of sleepless nights you endured in silence, unseen. That is the very fragrance that makes some walk away, and it is also the fragrance that will guide the lost souls home. Cancer, you are not alone because you are wrong. You are alone because you are calling the right ones. And the right ones often arrive after the crowd has left. Yes, they are leaving you now, but do you know what is drawn closer than ever? A soul, a gaze, an embrace that requires no words. They will come not because you tried to impress, but because they sensed you. You don't need to shout. You don't need to prove. Just keep scenting the world with your truth. And if you've ever felt rejected, misunderstood for something you couldn't quite name, write it down, not to complain, but to send a message to other souls that they are not alone. Because behind the scent you carry is a whole river of memories waiting to be recognized. And in the next part, we will go deeper into this question. Why does your gentle light feel blinding to others? Please stay, because that light is also a doorway. Dear Cancer, there is something no one has ever told you clearly enough. True light has a scent. It doesn't come from what you put on your skin. It doesn't live in the words you carefully choose. It's not something you try to create. It is what you can no longer hide. You are not giving off an unpleasant odor. You are radiating a primal light, a light that hasn't been filtered. And because it's unfiltered, those who have never faced themselves will find you too bright, so bright they are forced to look away. Not because you are wrong, not because you are too much, but because you are present. And in a world where people are so used to covering up, pure presence is what throws them off balance. Cancer, you are gentle, you are quiet, you are still. You don't walk into a room and claim the air. You enter softly yet fully, and it is that quiet presence that unsettles others. I once sat with a 40-year-old Cancer woman. She had just left a relationship of nearly 10 years. She told me, "He said I'm a good person, but he couldn't stand the feeling of being lit up. Every time I was silent, he said I made him feel empty, even though I wasn't saying anything." I wasn't surprised, because you don't need words to illuminate. You are a steady, comforting hearth fire that burns in silence, not blinding, not flickering, but strong enough to expose the shadows in others. The light you emit doesn't come from effort. It comes from cleansing, from the fact that you've touched your sorrow and didn't run, that you've sat with your wounds and didn't scream, that you've learned to love without needing to own. You are light because you no longer fear the dark, and that is something not everyone understands. Some people will choose to leave not because you hurt them, but because you make them see the wounds within themselves they've never dared to touch. You don't have to be loud to leave an impact. You don't need to wear robes or carry symbols. Your presence, quite literally, is already a bell, and a bell does not ring to be heard. A bell rings because it can no longer stay silent. In astrology, Cancer belongs to the water element, but this is not water from the surface. This is soul water, water from the wellspring of memory, the moisture of intuitions not yet spoken, the dew resting on petals no one remembers the name of. You are an undercurrent. You do not scream, but you shake the ground. You do not break the shore, but you nourish the soil. There is something in Buddhist teachings I want to offer you today. The Dhammapada says, "When the sun rises, a person may cover their eyes, but they cannot stop the light from coming." Cancer, you are that light. Not a light that shows off, but a light that calls sleeping souls to return. Some will see you and turn away not because they hate you, but because they are not ready to open their eyes. You don't have to dim yourself for someone else to breathe easier. Sometimes you just need to stand still and let them learn to inhale. I know you've folded yourself smaller before. You've tried to be softer, lighter, easier to understand. You've taken detours so others wouldn't see you as too much. But Cancer, if you keep shrinking to avoid making others uncomfortable, eventually you'll become a prisoner inside your own gentle scent. You have known how to make yourself smaller, like pouring moonlight into a cup so it's easier for others to drink. But the truth is, moonlight wasn't born to be held in a cup. It was born to reflect across lakes, to rest on someone's skin in the middle of the night and remind them they were once made of light. Cancer, you are that moonlight. You do not need to be fully understood. You only need to be left alone to shine. I invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you are a candle. No wind, no flickering, just a steady flame casting light on the wall of memories behind you. Are you living as the candle or as the smoke? Because there is one thing you must remember, now more than ever. Light does not have to explain its presence. Some people leave because you shine too brightly, and you might wonder, will anyone ever stay? But do you know what happens when your soul finally meets someone who isn't afraid of your light? Someone who doesn't flinch from your gaze? Someone who doesn't feel awkward in your silence? Someone who doesn't see you as a mirror, but as a shelter? They will come not because you tried to make them comfortable, but because you stopped dimming your true light. And when that moment arrives, an entirely new chapter will begin. Have you ever had someone look straight into you without needing to understand everything and still whisper, "I feel peace"? Tell that story, because your words might become the light for someone lost in their own shadow. And in the next part, we'll reach an even deeper truth. The scent you're carrying is not loneliness. It's the fragrance of a call to come home. Cancer, There are days you sit in a noisy room. Laughter echoes everywhere. People are living, performing, exchanging energy, and you smile. You're present. You nod at the right time. You sip tea like everyone else. But deep down, you feel like the only one still awake, while the rest are asleep in a very crowded dream. You are not disconnected. You are not cold. You are not broken. You are simply emitting a scent, sending an invisible signal into the space, like the last fish in the river swimming upstream, like the hush of waves whispering toward the ocean. Your scent is not of isolation. It's an invitation, a call to those who are wandering, to those who have dropped a piece of their souls somewhere in the noise, a call to those who've always felt different, but never dared to name that difference. Cancer, you are a sign. You are a bell, not loud but expansive. Others may not hear you, but those who are meant to will, and they are coming. Don't be discouraged because they haven't arrived yet. It's not that they aren't moving toward you. It's just that their soul is still learning to recognize your fragrance amidst a forest of distortion. You are not giving off the scent of abandonment. You're releasing the scent of soul home. A scent no one can define. Only remember when it passes by, like the scent of late sunlight on a mother's collar, like the aged paper of a handwritten letter sent from a past life. In astrology, Cancer is the sign of roots, the threshold between the surface world and the deep emotional currents. You don't just walk among the living. You are the one who carries messages from the ancestral line. You are the sigh whose reason was long forgotten. You are the quiet aftermath of a storm. Nothing is clear, yet something makes the lost ones pause and turn around. You carry the scent of a soul who has nurtured lifetimes, who has swallowed tears that had no voice, who has forgiven even when no apology came. And because of that, those who've endured the same will recognize you. No introductions needed, no explanations. They'll smell you as if you were a memory never lost. In Buddhism, souls like yours are called the marked ones, not because you've done something grand, but because you've walked through emotional fires and never lost your scent. And that is sacred. In the Bible, they call you anointed, the chosen ones. Don't need to speak. Their presence alone is enough to stir the hearts of those who carry the same song. Cancer. You may have felt out of place, but maybe you've just been standing at the start of a bridge while someone else is walking toward you. Each step they take purifies another layer of karma. Each memory they recover is a thread of your fragrance, calling them home. You don't need to search for them. You only need to stay with your light, with your sorrow that has softened, with a scent unlike any other, with a soul that no longer rushes. Place your hand on your heart for a moment, gently. Can you feel it? A whisper that doesn't come from your mind, but from deep beneath the folds of memory. Some soul is drawing near, and you are the first one they will recognize. Cancer. If others cannot understand the fragrance you carry, don't try to explain. You are not their lesson. You are a prayer. Nurture someone who is ready. Sometimes your loneliness doesn't come from being left behind. It comes from sending signals to a soul still very far away, and you're keeping the fire alive so they can find their way back. If you've ever met someone, and with just one glance you knew, it's them, not because they were beautiful, not because they said the perfect thing, but because you sensed them, sensed yourself in them, sensed a version of you that could never be put into words. Write that down. Even if it's just a symbol, even if it's only a single sentence, because someone curled up in the dark will see your words and their soul will exhale, I'm not alone. In the next part, we will reach the final place where you no longer need to apologize for smelling truly like yourself, where you will be allowed to keep the fullness of your soul scent without watering it down for anyone. I'll meet you there. Dear Cancer, I know you've made yourself small many times, so small that even you couldn't recognize yourself anymore. Not because you were weak, but because you wanted others to feel comfortable, because you didn't want to hurt anyone, because you learned early on, if I soften, if I fade, then maybe they'll stay. And so you diluted yourself, diluted your true scent, diluted your light, diluted your soul, so no one could call you too sensitive, too quiet, too deep. But Cancer, your soul was not born to be dissolved. Your soul is an original fragrance. Not everyone can handle its full potency, and that is not your fault. You do not need to apologize for being fragrant in your truth. You don't need to soften the comforting warmth you carry just because others are used to the synthetic sweetness of ease. You don't need to say, "Sorry, I'm a bit different," because that difference is the thread that ties you to all the lost souls who've been waiting for someone like you. You've lived long enough diluted. It's time for you to bloom in full scent, without hesitation, without shrinking, without dissolving. Cancer is the symbol of homecoming, a return to the part of you that never left but was hidden well. No one returns in silence. Dear Cancer, return always has a scent, and that scent is the scent of someone who once shattered, once lost their way, but never let go of their soul. You are fragrant like a cloth, soaked in holy water after a long journey, no longer pristine, but more sacred than anything untouched. And the ones who are worthy will recognize you. You do not need to shout who you are. You don't need a bio, a resume, or a list of merits. There's a verse in the Bible that says, "And I will know who you are, not by your words, but by the scent you carry." Truth does not need to be proven. It spreads on its own like incense, filling a room quietly, slowly, persistently, softening all that has grown hard. Cancer, you are that incense. You don't have to belong everywhere. You only need the courage to stand fully in your own scent without running from it. And that is a great lesson, a lesson no one ever taught you. You had to walk through each relationship alone, be misunderstood, shrink yourself, then rise again and whisper to your own soul, "I wasn't wrong for being me." You once believed, "If I smell true, they'll stay." But the truth is, only those who've lost their own scent can recognize that you are what they once were, what they once had and dropped. If your soul had a scent, it would be the scent of someone who has learned to love herself after being told too many times she was too different. You are the quiet reminder that we were not born to be easily accepted versions. We were born to be true. And the scent of our truest self is the holiest thing we own. Cancer, I know you've been silent for so long, but today you can let the tears fall. Not because you're sad, but because you're finally home. Let the tears fall if they come, without holding them back, because you no longer have to keep yourself inside a bottle someone else chose. You don't have to act anymore. You don't have to hide your scent. You don't need permission to be you. And if you've ever said sorry for being too real, too deep, too quiet, know this today. You don't have to anymore. Let your words drift through the space as a soft declaration. I no longer dilute my soul. Thank you, Cancer soul, for staying this long. Thank you for still believing in what can't be touched but can be felt. May you always carry your own fragrance unapologetically, without hiding, without explaining. And may the world soon learn to smell with the heart. Namaste. You are real and you are enough.